Afternoon, everyone. Welcome to our Find Your Future panel event on science and technology today. My name is Ruta. I work in the NCL internships team at the university's career service. And before our panelists introduce themselves and begin the session, we'll just go over some basic housekeeping for the session. So this event, as you might have noticed, is being recorded and will be available on the Career Service YouTube channel to watch again at a later date. We understand that some of you may wish to turn your camera function off, although we do encourage as many of you as possible to keep your camera on throughout the session, especially during the Q&A section at the end with our panelists. So you will notice that as you've entered, you've been automatically muted. During the session, there will be an opportunity for you to ask questions, and you can do this by typing your question within the chat box here on Zoom, or alternatively by clicking on the raise hand function if you do wish to speak live. Once you have spoken, we do ask that you click on the lower hand button so that our speakers can identify any further questions from other attendees, and please just mute yourselves again. Okay, so Ange, if you click through, we'll see a brief running order for today's session. So we will start with an introduction from Cranswick, and we'll then hear from Sage UK, followed by Procter Gamble, and then last but not least, it will be Leica Biosystems that we'll hear from. Okay, so thanks everyone again for joining us, and we do really hope that you enjoyed this session. And with that, I'm going to hand you over to our first panelist who will introduce themselves. So Katie from Cranswick, take it away.
Thank you, Rita. So my name is Katie. I'm the Group Learning and Development Manager at Cranswick PLC. Thank you very much for having me. It's great to be here. And I guess normally I love doing these things because I get to come onto campus and speak to students. And at this point, I'd probably do can you do a show of hands as to who's ever heard of Cranswick before? But I understand that's difficult today. So I'm going to presume not a lot of people have heard of Cranswick because that generally tends to be the census when I'm out and about talking to prospective graduates, placement students and apprentices who are looking to join the company. So we are one of the largest food manufacturers in the UK and we're based in East Yorkshire. However, we do operate nationally. I am going to try and share my screen. It did work a second ago, so hopefully it's going to work now. And then just talk through some slides. So we're a food manufacturer essentially. We specialise in pork and poultry products. However, over the recent years, we have looked to expand our product portfolio and go into kind of other categories as well that are non-meat. And the reason why I'm here today is we are recruiting at the moment for graduate and placement roles. So I will touch on those vacancies a little later on through, well, I haven't really got much time. In the next 5 minutes, I'll touch on those opportunities that we're recruiting for. So our purpose as a business, so the purpose really is probably now more relevant than ever, that we are feeding the nation with authentically made, sustainably produced food created with passion. This is a science and technology event, so those of you that are studying those degrees and are looking to go into sort of the food or the healthcare or technology industry, that's brilliant. And I think if the last 18 months has taught us anything, it's these industries are very, very relevant. And if you're looking to join a company with that sort of job security, then you're certainly looking in the right place, because it's particularly within food and drink. Everybody needs food, everybody needs to drink. So you're joining an industry where, you know, you're going to have that career for a very long time if you wanted it. I am going to flick through because I'm just very conscious of time, just to give you an overall kind of summary of the business. So we started in the 1970s and we've progressed and grown throughout the years to being, like I say, one of the largest food manufacturers in the UK. And the reason why we've grown is because we've acquired businesses that are doing really well. So we see a business that's doing brilliantly in some form of food manufacturing aspect, and we will buy that business. So we've done that in poultry, we've done it with cooked meats, we've done it with olives and antipasti, and that's why we are the size of the business that we are today, because we acquire other businesses. Our product portfolio, so if you haven't heard of us, we supply supermarkets and food service customers with own label products. So what that means is if you go into Tesco and buy a pack of Tesco Finest Bacon or gammon, that's a Cranswick produced product. It hasn't been made in a factory that, say, it's a Tesco factory. It's been made in a food manufacturer like Cranswick. If you go to M&S and buy a pack of sausage rolls, that's a Cranswick product. If you go to Asda and buy a pot of olives, that's a Cranswick product. So you can kind of see how this works. So throughout that whole kind of farm to fork piece, we can offer graduates a career in almost any department within our business to help create these delicious looking products that you can see on the screen here. Locations wise, as I said, we are located in Yorkshire. Here's our head office. We have 6 sites here in the city of Hull. However, then we are based nationwide as well. Our furthest north site is Malton, and then we go right down to just north of London, and we have a site in Wembley. We employ over 12,500 people, and we operate across 16 different facilities. Customer base, like I say, we're predominantly retail. However, we do have a proportion of the business into wholesale, food service, and then export as well. And you can see some of the customer logos on that right-hand side. Our vision, so very, very relevant at the minute, and sometimes the meat industry can be sort of demonized, that it's unhealthy to eat meat and it's bad for the environment. However, Cranswick are at the forefront of this sustainability, and we're kind of leading the way in terms of what good looks like in being sustainable as a food manufacturer. So our strapline is that we want to be the world's most sustainable meat business, and about 3 years ago we created a second nature strategy, and we are right in the heart of that strategy now, and making sure that everything that we do and we produce is as sustainable and is produced as efficiently as possible. I could talk so much about that, but we've got loads of information on our website, so if anybody wants to go and have a little read, then feel free. And then I guess just to finish off with, so careers at Cranswick. So I actually graduated from Newcastle University myself. I studied agriculture there, and I graduated in 2014, so about 7 years ago now. And I had no idea what I wanted to do, but all I know is I didn't really consider the food industry to be something, to be an industry that I wanted to work in. I did the usual and just kind of went traveling and put off getting a job for as long as possible. But I suppose now I've joined the business, and now I realise, you know, as a huge national organisation, and I'm sure the other employers on the call will sort of say the same thing, bigger organisations have a lot of different opportunities that they can offer students, and that is exactly the case here at Cranswick. So I don't really think I've got time. Am I at the end of my 5 minutes? Is that...
No, go ahead, Katie, please.
I'll quickly. So we recruit for a number of different graduate programs. However, probably the 2 relevant ones to those studying kind of science and technology related degrees are our general graduate program. So we're recruiting for that now, and the graduates will join the business next September. And the general program is really just an overview of the company in 2 years. So you get to spend spend time rotating around all of the different departments within the business, and then at the end of that 2 years make a decision as to which department you want to go into and pursue a career. So it's absolutely perfect for those who are interested in the agri-food industry but aren't quite sure what department they want to go into or what they're good at, and it just gives you that time really to make those decisions for yourself. And the second one is the technical graduate programme. So within the technical function of a business, to explain it really quickly, a technical team makes sure that the product that you purchase and you take off a shelf in a supermarket is safe to eat and safe for the consumer. So it's all of that piece around shelf life and allergens and, you know, all of that, making sure that product's safe to eat. So we recruit annually for our technical graduate programme, looking for those students who have specifically studied science related degrees who want to come into the technical function of our business. So that's sort of it from me. So I'm looking forward to hearing from the other companies and then answering any questions that you might have for me here at Cranswick. Thank you very much.
Brilliant. Thanks so much, Katie. That was a really good overview. I mean, I know you were worried about the limited time, but I think you gave a really good insight there. And, you know, if nothing else, then I'm sure those really appetizing looking slides will have caught people's interest for sure.
Definitely. Thank you.
Brilliant. So thanks for that. All right, let's keep it moving. So next we have Ian from Sage UK. Ian, the virtual floor is yours.
Thank you very much, Rita. So I'm here to talk about graduate careers at Sage. My name is Ian McKinley. I'm an early careers ambassador involved in all areas of the actual recruitment process, and I'm also, for my sins, a manager in the product delivery realm, delivering cloud-based products for our customers. So, who are Sage? Sage are a software company providing accounting, financial, people, and payroll solutions to small and medium businesses, accountants, and partners. I work for Sage UK, but Sage as a whole is based in the UK, Spain, France, Germany, Australia, South Africa, the USA, lots of different places. And I work with these people across the world, which is I find a real positive in terms of getting to work with different types of people. Just a shout out there, we've got a brand new shiny office. I was in there yesterday handing out donuts to the Shades graduate intake, which went down very well. Lots of bright, shiny, clean, nice, comfortable spaces to work in, collaborate, enjoy yourself. We have Starbucks there, which is subsidised. It's nice to see. And we're just next to Silverlink, so we're very handy for transport to the region. Okay, so our graduate program, we call it Ignite, which is a 2-year development program to give people a real kickstart in terms of their career, and give them all the tools, techniques, skills that allow them to flourish and really move forward in terms of where they're going to progress in a very quick time, we like to add. We have lots of different roles across the business. We have engineering roles, QA roles, project management, marketing, BA, experience design, if you're into trying want to change the UIs and sort of general interface of things. Cloud-based work, cloud is a huge driver for us now in the business. Security, similarly, it's the real forefront of that, and IT itself, which is essentially the infrastructure in terms of the whole back end of our the business runs on. Okay, so as part of this program, we have a well-crafted, designed whole onboarding process. Currently, this year's graduates are going through a couple of weeks of onboarding, familiarising themselves with their colleagues, the whole group, and as part of that, you're giving a buddy. You're giving someone who is with you throughout the initial process, and a mentor that will be with you for the 2 years that you're part of the scheme. And all the way through it, something we really like to highlight is you'll be given lots of opportunities to develop yourself, both socially in terms of your personal skills, presentation skills, but also, of course, your technical skills. The key thing for you as part of this is to allow you to take what you've got, what you bring to us, and us take advantage of that, allow you to grow and develop and be the best of you going forward. The graduates have a forum and a weekend regular get-togethers. It's a very social thing. And I believe they're going to get together for a Christmas party soon. So, well, COVID permitting, so we'll see how that goes, kind of thing. But yet again, there's lots of opportunities. And one thing I'll touch on there, which a lot of them get involved in, is Sage Ambassador, where you get literally involved in the recruitment process, if you so wish, to actually going forward, take part in interviews, presentations, the whole process. There's lots of opportunities with which to get involved with this. So, how do you apply? Currently, Sage have not got the careers out yet, but the URL is there, which will be available from December 2021. Try clicking and graduate if you want to quickly filter down into those opportunities. Then submit the application. There will be a short video interview for you to do, which will just be answering 4 questions that you send in and reassess. And if you are successful, you'll be invited to attend an assessment centre where there will be a group activity, which says how well you work in terms of a group, a short presentation, which is about yourself in terms of you give us an idea of why do you want this job and what do you bring to the role, the real you. And finally, there will be an interview where we look at assessing yourself in terms of soft skills, but also more technical skills which pertain directly to the role that you're applying for. Okay, so something that we're really big at Sage is colleague success networks, because we want people to feel at home here, want to feel they belong, and be able to reflect the real you in terms of the workplace. Okay, and so we've got a whole host of different networks that we have pertaining to LGBT, race and ethnicity, women, transgender, non-binary, different abilities. We want everybody to feel at home and wanted here, and not last but not least, families, parents, colleagues, carers, allies, lots of things. So lots of things to enable you to be the authentic, real you in your workplace. Obviously, I'm not going to answer any questions right now. Is there a question in the chat actually? Popped up there. No, that's just how it is. But afterwards, after this whole thing, if you drop us an email at grads@sage.com, we will answer anything you put to us. Thank you very much for the opportunity, and I'd love to speak to you soon. Thank you.
Brilliant. Thank you so much, Ian. And yeah, I'm sure people will have questions, but we will do those questions just after everyone's had their introduction. So well done on your lovely shiny new North Tyneside office. It looks amazing, Ian. And I especially enjoy the strategic mention of Starbucks. I'm sure everyone's ears perked up when they heard that. It's a massive, massive advantage. Brilliant. Thank you so much, Ian. So all right, next up we have Ollie from Procter & Gamble. So Ollie, whenever you're ready.
Perfect, thank you. Yeah,
Mm.
hello, thank you so much for joining. My name is Ollie and I'm joining you from Procter & Gamble, Newcastle, where I work as a business and technology expert. Before I go into my role more and what an IT placement at Procter & Gamble would look like, I'll just give you a bit of personal background on myself. Conscious of time, I'll be as brief as possible. I did a computer science degree with business at the University of Bath, the third year being a placement year. So in the summer of 2019, I started as an intern at Procter & Gamble, working as an IT analyst up here in Newcastle, just down the road in Cobalt from the Sage office that Ian shared a picture of. We only have a Costa, not Starbucks, but depends which you like. Before I go into more detail about my time as an intern and my current role in the organization, actually, I'll just give you some quick background on Procter & Gamble as an organization. Procter & Gamble was founded over 180 years ago as a simple soap and candle company. Today, Procter & Gamble is the world's largest consumer goods company and home to many sort of iconic and trusted brands that all aim to make life a little bit easier in small but meaningful ways. Just to list a few brands, we have Gillette, Tampax, Fairy, Oral-B, Braun, Olay, and many, many more. So many, in fact, that actually I stumble across new ones still today at work. Working at Procter & Gamble, it's sort of the aim we fulfill our purpose of improving lives for 5 billion consumers in 180 countries through sort of leading billion-dollar brands such as the one I just mentioned. Drilling down to sort of more of an IT standpoint, which is the aim of this session for us here, is we aim to deliver sort of technical innovations that drive and accelerate our growth and help to further sort of cement our renowned status as the world's largest consumer goods firm. Procter & Gamble IT now is about 3,000 people strong out of our sort of 100,000 employees, made up of people from, I think it's 65 nationalities. So yeah, to just go through sort of what an IT role at P&G would look like. There's a vast range of areas. These include sort of robotic process automation, digital supply chain, data security, smart factory stuff, virtual reality, digital marketing, and then I personally sit in the business analyst side of that, which probably sounds the most boring after reading out some of those. But I think it's good. Actually, why there's something to point out is that I'm aware that to sort of a science and technology student or similar, you don't often link organizations like Procter & Gamble as obvious or traditional choices for those core tech and IT roles. Actually, this was the case for myself before I applied for an internship as a computer science student a few years ago. However, I was very pleased to have been proved massively wrong on this, and the opportunities and stuff that I do on a day-to-day basis now and as an intern, I think went a long way to sort of disprove this. So I'm going to do it a little bit differently and sort of just talk about my own personal internship, because it was only 2-3 years ago now, and I think that's the best way to illustrate the role and opportunities we offer, and just go through what I do now and my role as an intern. So starting with my internship, I completed a 12-month placement as an IT analyst, which I then extended for a further 4 months. My role as an intern really suited me, something I really, really enjoyed, especially as that break in my sandwich year from my degree. Basically, a lot of my time was assigned to sort of analysing current business processes and coming up with solutions to sort of streamline, automate, or replace them in any way really to return an increase of value in one definition or another. Without boring you with sort of too many of the details, this is where I found an opportunity that sort of defined the rest of my internship. And even today, 3 years later, the stuff I did as an intern is still in production today. So just to give some background on that, I pitched the idea of using an AI algorithm to replace a large manual effort that thousands of our employees were doing on a daily basis back then. when I got the buy-in and the funding and launched that. 3 years later, it's still running in multiple languages across the globe. It does millions of transactions a year, and it's a key player in our day-to-day business. The reason I think this is sort of an important thing to note is I think it really highlights the sort of day one responsibilities that you get as a P&G intern. You're not there to be an intern, you're there to be a normal employee, and you do the work that anyone else would do, right? And I think for me that made the P&G internship pretty unique. You're given specific project responsibilities, and you're working on real and live business challenges right from the start, and then you really have a genuine opportunity to influence the business as an intern and actually return real monetary value, which to me was something I really, really enjoyed, that sort of tangible return. So after completing my internship, I returned to Bath to complete my degree from lockdown, and then returned to P&G in May of 2020. My current role today, as I said, is a business and technology expert. And just to cut through the buzzwords there, I always think the best way to describe this role is something of an internal consultant, working between the business and our development team and sort of managing the changes that we do. So yeah, and on top of that, I do a lot of AI work. That's sort of my passion area, and P&G do everything they can to make sure that stays part of my role, as it's something I really enjoy. So where could you apply? At the moment, our IT placements are all live on P&G Careers. If you just Google P&G Careers, it'll be the top result. Search for the keyword placement, and please apply if you're interested. The roles are sort of first come, first serve, and sort of normally close by the end of the calendar year. So yeah, that about wraps up my introduction. Thank you very much, and I look forward to answering some of your questions.
Excellent. Thanks for that, Ollie. Great to hear that, you started off as an intern, had a fantastic time, and now you're a full-time employee at the company. And I think our attendees may well have questions for you later on about your internship and placement opportunities. So yeah, brilliant. Thanks for that. And last but not least, we have Louisa from Leica Biosystems. So Louisa, are you ready?
Oh, thank you. I will share my screen. I've got a few slides, not too many, but a few slides to share. So hopefully you can hear me all right. So, well, thank you very much for having me. My name is Louisa Poole. I'm one of the senior managers within the R&D department here at Leica Newcastle, in Leica Biosystems in Newcastle. And I'm aware that some of you may not be aware of us. So I just wanted to give a little bit of a background about us. So Leica Systems is a global leader in workflow solutions and automation relating to cancer diagnostics. So I guess what does that really mean? Essentially, what we do is we integrate each step of the process from the point that a biopsy is taken by the surgeon, so creating, the actual instrumentation that can take those biopsies, all the way through to testing that sample, processing that sample, all the way to final imaging, so looking down the microscope specifically, or indeed making a digital image, which has become very important during these COVID days when people have been working from home. So that enables the final diagnosis for patients, which is a very crucial, important part of that. Where is it not? There we are. So to give you a little bit of history of Leica, we started back in 1989, founded by Professor Wilson Horn. He was a pathologist at Newcastle University, and he basically created a startup company. Eventually that became Novacastra Laboratories in 1990. And then we actually moved to our not quite so new premises, because we're still here, but back in 1998, we moved to Balliol Industrial Estate. You can see that here on the slide that is shown here. So that's our site here. We were then taken over by an Australian company called Vision Systems, and that was back in 2002, before being acquired by our current parent company, Danaher. So Danaher actually own and have quite a number of other companies that you may be aware of. Beckman Coulter is one of the big ones as well. So they're our sister company. Now, from a Leica perspective, Newcastle became the Centre for Advanced Staining and Reagent Development in 2019. And just to give you an idea of where we're based, so we're actually a global company. And you can see here for advanced staining, we're indicated by the orange dots on this map. So we've got our headquarters, which is dot number 5, which is in Nuzlocke in Germany. But we also have sites across the world. So in Melbourne, we have our Centre of Excellence for Instrument Development. Over in the US, in a place called Danvers, we have our clinical affairs team who work with pharmaceutical companies for companion diagnostics. And then in Newcastle, at number 3, we are very much at the forefront of reagent development and manufacture. So just to give you an idea of some of the, some of the things that we actually manufacture here and develop here in Newcastle. So there's a number of different parts to it. So this is all things that are used for staining of cancer diagnostics samples. So this ranges from anything from antibodies to probes, molecular probes, that is, ancillary reagents, so general bulk reagents that people don't use, would normally make it themselves, but actually it's much easier to make ready to use. But also the detection systems. How do we actually visualize and see these stains on a slide? So that's just a really quick overview from a Leica perspective. I guess to those that have joined us today, how is it relevant to you? Well, I guess from an open role perspective, we're actually looking for scientists to join my team at the moment. We've got a few vacancies within R&D from that side of things. But for those that are still completing their degrees, we'll also be opening up applications for a student placement position in December. That's a year-long position, which will be aimed to start in September 2022. And that's generally for students that are just, will be finishing off their second year in June, July time, before completing their final year studies after the student placement. So certainly a few things there for people to consider as appropriate. So I'll hand back for the next part of the session.
Brilliant. Thank you, Louisa. That was a really nice introduction to the company, and fantastic that you're looking to offer placements. I know a lot of our students do look for those placement years, so hopefully you might get some questions about that as well. So, okay, thank you so much to all of our panelists for their presentations, and hope that our audience has found this interesting and insightful. We will now move on to the Q&A part of the session. So as we mentioned before, you can either type in your question into the chat box and we'll pick this up for you, or you can use the raise hand function if you would prefer to speak to our panelists via audio instead. Okay, so we'll give it a few minutes for people to get their questions in. And otherwise, I have some questions prepared for our panelists as well that I would love to ask. So perhaps to give people some time to just type out their questions, I would just like to ask the panel if your organizations offer any internships or placements. I mean, I know we've just heard from Louisa there, but our students do seek those internship and placement opportunities a lot. So I think this would be interesting to hear. So shall we start with Ian from Sage?
Yeah, we do a couple of different types of placements. I think we do summer internships in a variety of roles across the business. Basically, the roles that I mentioned before, so it's quite diverse areas. I believe we also do a year-long placements as well. Off the top of my head, I don't know when they become available at this point in time, but I would suggest dropping that email, grads, grads @sage.com. They will have more information in terms of that. But we definitely do year placements as well as some internships.
Brilliant. Thanks for that, Ian. Ollie, what about Procter & Gamble?
Yeah, it's placements that we're really sort of driving applications for at the moment, and they're currently open for IT placements in both based here in Newcastle or down in Weybridge near London. We're looking for students obviously currently in their penultimate year of study, or even if you're final year as well, if you've graduated, you can go on the placement or the summer placement. It's sort of a way to maybe going straight into a job that way. We're just looking for people with an interest in IT. We encourage students who have a degree which involves computer science or something similar, but we also encourage applications from applicants who just have a real interest in pursuing a career in IT, sort of regardless of degree. So yeah, that's sort of our main area that we're pushing for at the moment.
Mm-hmm. Excellent, that's great to hear. Katie, what's it like at Cranswick?
Yes, we recruit annually for our industry placement scheme, and yeah, we do that. Just we rely on our placement students just as much as we do our graduates to add value to our teams. So if you go onto our website, which is, you just Google Cranswick, and under the careers section there's a whole page on placements. So applications are open now, and they close the 8th of January. You can apply for just a general placement if people aren't sure which area of the business they'd like to go into. That's fine. We'll sort of read a CV and match you to the relevant department. But if it is a specific department that you know you're interested in, so if it is kind of research or technical, you know, we can pair you up with an industry placement. So yeah, very much so for Cranswick.
Excellent. Thank you, Katie. And
Thank you.
Louisa, I do have a few questions for you just from the chat. So
Yep.
The first one is, hi, Louisa. I'm incredibly interested in applying for a placement here at Leica, as I am currently studying cellular and molecular biology. However, due to COVID, it has been difficult to gain laboratory skills. Do you have any advice with regards to applications and experience?
That's a really good question, because I think that's where a lot of people have struggled over the last couple of years, courtesy of COVID. Even getting into the lab at uni has been a trial. So you know, here at Leica, I'm completely aware that that has been a trial, and ultimately, what you know, we can from a lab experience perspective, we can help to train you and teach you the skills that we need you to use in the student placement. So what I think I find much more useful and valuable is actually those other skills, those transferable skills that you know you can get from not just your degree, but also from outside of your degree. So if you part-time work and those opportunities, you know, think about the team building opportunities there. You know, all those transferable skills are just as applicable sometimes over and above the lab experience, simply because we can teach that, and totally understand from a COVID perspective that that's been a real tricky part this year. Hopefully that's helped answer your question, Kate. Thank you very much for that question.
Yeah, thanks, Kate, for your question. Actually, we get asked this a lot at the Career Service, so that's a really, really good question, and hopefully will help lots of students out. Another question we have from Helen. So Helen asks, how important is further study, for example, you know, master's, PhD, and so on, for students looking to go into this area? Will there be more career opportunities for students with master's, PhD qualifications?
So I guess from that perspective, within Leica, at least anyway, the additional degrees are really useful. They can be really useful, but they're also not the be all and end all either, because there's a lot of value from experience just within industry itself. So we certainly recruit from across the board, if that makes sense. So we do have people that come in, brand new graduates, all the way through to people that have postdoctoral experience and PhDs. It's more about your understanding and knowledge that is more important to us, because, like I said, some of the other things we can help teach and make sure that you've got the competent skills for us. It's the knowledge and background that really helps. You know, PhDs do show that you've been able to look at and focus for 3 years on a specific topic and really research and literature research and all the rest of it. But I'm just trying to make sure that it's not all PhDs. We do look at both sides. It's not, if you apply to Leica and you don't have a PhD, that's not going to be the case. And if you don't have a PhD, if you apply to Leica, we get a yes. We're very open from that perspective.
Brilliant. Thanks for that, and thank you, Helen, for your question.
Yeah, thank you, Helen.
Kate's question actually got me wondering. I think this would be of interest to a lot of students watching this later on YouTube. What are some of the things that students can do now to really strengthen their chances when it comes to applying for your organizations in the future? So can I ask Ollie maybe to start this?
Yeah. So I think, sort of going a little bit off what Louisa just said, it's not just about what you do at university. It's not just about having the degree. PG is really interesting to hear what people do in their free time, the other skills, sort of anything else that you do is, at PG, I think this is often quite a generic thing to say, but it really is true. Like work-life balance, for example, is really, really pushed here. What you do after work is just as important as what you do during work, and that is really, really pushed here. I think when it comes to an application and what you can do from that, it is about that as well. You know, when it comes to your CV, sort of not just demonstrating that you've got a degree and what GCSEs you got. You know, it's that whole picture that I think is really important to strengthen your application.
Yeah, so would you encourage students to really get involved in, you know, extracurricular activities as much as they can outside of university? Yeah.
Yes, exactly. Yeah. Anything they can do, for sure.
Excellent. Thanks, Ollie. Could I ask Ian as well? Ian, would you have anything to add?
Very much so. I mean, over the years, I've interviewed a lot of graduates, and I would say, touching the MSc thing again, is we have hired people for, say, engineering or the developer role, whose first degree were maybe arts or, you know, something similar kind of thing, but have shown they've done a conversion, you know, degree for the MSc because they're passionate about a particular area. Also, we've hired people who don't have specific degrees for these areas, but have demonstrated in their own time the willingness to pick up certain skills. So, for example, making small software projects or, you know, just learning things. I think it's that. I think something I like to see in interviews is a willingness to develop yourself, maybe how you solve problems, how well you work as a team, generally how you're going to handle challenges in life. Everybody has challenges in life fundamentally, but it's demonstrating how you've handled that, and it gives you the real person behind the title or whatever, what's written down in the CV. But just to reiterate, please do a good CV, 2 pages max, nice, brief, to the point, nice spelling, and just highlight those little things about yourself. As Ollie touched on there, it's not just about qualifications. That gets you in the door. We want to know the real you behind it, the stuff that really defines you. You don't have to do a relevant job, but let's say you do some charity work, maybe you work in a bar, something which you do, which shows that you're willing to work and be seen to be someone that we want to employ. Okay.
Yeah, that makes perfect sense, Ian. Thanks for highlighting that, especially, you know, as from the career service perspective, 2 pages in your CV is all that you need. I think it's worth highlighting again. Katie and Louisa, I'll get back to you in a second. In the meantime, though, I do have a question for Ollie in the chat. So Ollie, the student asks, I am a graduate student of computer science who just enrolled in 2021 after working for 5 years. Would you mind my academic background when applying for jobs related to IT? I had worked as a landscape architect for 5 years and had no IT related experience.
Yeah, absolutely. That would not have a negative impact on your application whatsoever. I mean, I started a computer science degree when I was 19. I didn't have any IT background before that, you know, that was relevant in that way as well. So in no way would I consider that to be a negative on your application. I think even just going off sort of what Ian was just saying, some of the skills, challenges and stuff you've done in your previous experience, even as a landscape architect, I'm sure could really offer some value here. So absolutely, I would not look at that as a negative at all.
Brilliant. Okay, hopefully that's encouraging to our student. And, you know, if you're interested, go ahead and apply by all means. All right. As an extension to my previous question, this is to Louisa and Katie. You know, what are some of the things that people can do to really stand out on their application and, you know, at the interview process or assessment center or what it may be? Would you have any tips for our students there? So Katie, I'll go to you first.
Yeah, I think Ian and Ollie and Louisa answered that question really well. And I guess the only thing I would add to it is from sitting on the recruiter perspective and going through hundreds of graduate CVs every year, it's, you know, people often, and as Ian was rightly saying, do a good CV, don't waste the recruiter's time, 2 pages, but then people often forget if you're requested to do a covering letter. It's very obvious when you've got a brilliant CV that somebody spent hours or days literally making, and then they've whipped together a covering letter in half an hour. It's really disappointing because your covering letter then takes those bits from your CV and tells us why you are a perfect candidate for that role that you're applying for. And there's nothing sort of more off-putting than just receiving a generic covering letter that you know that they've sent to other employers. So just yeah, put as much effort into your covering letter as you would your CV. And if you're serious about the company that you're applying for, make sure you do your background, do your research, and then show that within your covering letter. And it doesn't have to be pages and pages long. I've seen brilliant covering letters that are just 2 paragraphs, but that, to me, that can really make you stand out as a candidate and show that you're willing to put the work in to apply for a role, and just try and make yourself stand out on paper, I guess.
Excellent. That's really, really sound advice, Katie. Thank you. Louisa, is there anything you could add to that at all?
I think Katie pretty much covered the points I was going to make. Absolutely go with what Katie says about the covering letter and the CV, making sure you spend enough time on them that actually shows that you're really interested in the role you're applying for. Quite often we see CVs that come in that clearly have been sent out to multiple companies, at which point you think, well, actually, are they really interested in the job, or is it something else that's there? And absolutely go with do your research about the company, because for 2 reasons. One, it's good to know about the company and what they do, but it also it's a good point to check and see, is their ethos, is what they're doing really, does it match up to what you want to, what that you value. So I'd absolutely recommend both. Yeah, we've definitely had some cases where, the Leica brand is very well known as a camera manufacturer, and sometimes we, in interviews, we've said, what do you know about the company? It's like, oh, we know you make cameras. And it's like, that's not what we do, because that's a completely separate company, unfortunately. So I know that's a really simple and perhaps not as obvious, but just to reiterate that actually researching is really important. It just shows that you're passionate about the company, and that you're really truly interested in the role as well.
Excellent. Thanks for that, Louisa. It's amazing to hear that, students get through to the interview stage not realizing which company they've applied for. That's incredible. Yeah, but it happens, and absolutely doing your research is so important. And for one, you want to make sure that the company is a right fit for you as much as you are a right fit for them. But yeah, go out and speak to the company's employees, and make sure you reference things that you find out about the company that you like in your application form. I think that's always going to impress the employer. So Louisa, actually, I do have a question for you, another question from Kate in the chat box. So Kate asks, what is the placement year application process for Leica?
So the application process is essentially submission of a CV. Now we'll be advertising on Newcastle University's vacancy site. So look out for that. It'll be probably the first couple of weeks in December, I think, is where we're planning to start opening those applications. CV to start with, and then generally what we've done in the past is interview with a presentation. And then after that, it generally selection, unless it's been a really, really close call between candidates. But generally, it's relatively straightforward and easy.
Yeah,
it's an interview, simple. So it's never easy.
Yeah, it's simple, but it's probably not easy. But yeah, that does sound quite straightforward. So that's quite good. I mean, sometimes the application process is such a long one that students might get a bit put off, but definitely doesn't sound like that's the case with Leica at all. So thanks for your question, Kate. And I think actually it's quite a good question to pose to our other panelists as well. Ian, what's the application process like at Sage?
I think I've touched on it before, but something we do, which I do find interesting, is when you apply, you basically send in, initially, you send in a video, you record a video via our website in terms of answering 4 questions, which I'm happy to say are related to what do you know about us, things, why you want the job, what do you want to get out of it, those kind of things really. And based on that, you get a feel for that initial feel for that kind of side of things. We also get you at the same time to upload your CV as part of it, and provide us a list of roles that you're specifically interested in from our shortlist of roles. So you don't just have to apply for one role; you can apply for a whole series of things. And what we do is we analyze your video and CV, and we basically look at which roles we feel based on your choice we'd like you to actually go for. We even also suggest the time other roles that you'd like to go for based on your skill sets, your passions and other things. Because we sometimes think people forget about certain roles. For example, something we do big now, which, well, to have a pun, big data, is we're really big on data analyst kind of roles now. And some people, maybe with a strong maths background, may not think of those kind of things, but we maybe push them towards considering those roles as well. So we proactively maybe suggest certain roles to you that you may not have previously considered. Once we've got in touch with you and gone through the, getting you ready for the interview, you come in physically, depending on the circumstance. In the old days when we actually used to do that, or maybe like we have done over the last year and a half, is we do an online assessment whereby you'll work as part of a small group, about 5-6 people on a problem, do a short 10-minute presentation to us, and do an interview based on a collection of soft skills questions, really getting into the grips of the real you and why you want to do this role. And then we also have a techie on the course, somebody who relates to the area that you're assuming it's a technical job. It might be marketing, might be marketing person or managerial, but somebody who basically has a skill set that's relevant to the actual job that you're applying for. And we ask you something specific around that kind of thing. Just to add, I didn't touch on it before, but we run a recruitment. The actual recruitment happens between February and August. We have a number of assessment centres. So if you miss one, there will be a number going forward. We hired a lot of graduates last year. I think we hired at least 60 graduates in the UK last year, over 30 in the Newcastle offices. And we look at finalising all details by September, with starting at the start of October for the new financial year. So that's the way our process works in terms of that. Okay.
Excellent. Thanks for that overview, Ian. And I think it's great that you even kind of suggest to people, what roles they might want to go into, because as we know, students, majority of students when they graduate from university just really don't have much of an idea. So they might really fancy Sage, but just don't know which direction they want to go.
I'll give you an example here, if you don't mind. A classic role is business analyst, and at times there isn't really a specific degree, depending on the university, that pertains to that role. However, we do feel certain abilities, like a high level of how should I say, inquisitiveness, searching, really looking at problem solving, but with good interpersonal skills. Those are the kind of things that we like in terms of a business analyst. And so we will look based on maybe how somebody's come across in terms of their video and what their skill sets are, suggesting that we could, for example, we've in the past had people who I mentioned again, you've come from maybe a literature background, a history grad, other things, going into a business analyst role, because business analysts don't have a really techie knowledge, they don't really need to know it, but they need to be able to understand what a customer needs and how to actually supply those needs by by giving them something related to actually the area that they're working in. So there's a whole host of things, but we do something I really I'm glad that we do here. We do actually give people some guidance, because we've all been there, quite frankly. I did a maths degree. I didn't have a clue what I was going to do, quite frankly. I actually applied for Sage back in the day because I thought they did accountancy, so it was something to do with maths, which turns out it's pretty much rubbish, quite frankly. But I ended up paying it because my maths degree never came in. But these things happen, and I think it's good to give people a little bit of guidance and some ideas of where they can go with their career. Okay.
Definitely. Excellent. Thanks, Ian. Ollie, can I pose the same question to you? Just a brief overview of your application process.
Yeah, sure. So our application process, I think, kind of breaks down, I think they call it 3 steps with 2A and 2B or something, but 4 steps really. Obviously, step 1, you submit your application for either a full-time or internship position. It's the same. This normally takes about 15 minutes. Obviously, that's your CV. I think it's optional for a cover letter, but obviously, let's be honest, something like that is optional. It's always better, as I said, to go the extra effort and sort of write one for the role. After that, if you pass the sort of screening process that's done there, they have what they call the peak performance assessment. It's where it's sort of looking to assess your background, your experiences, interests, work-related attitudes, and just sort of measure your capability against sort of P&G's competencies that, which they come up to define successful job performance. I think we said this takes as much time as you need to complete, but looking at the logs, I think the most applicants take about 20 minutes to complete this. After that, it's something called reasoning screening, which is sort of measures your raw processing power and ability, sort of learning environments. This is delivered online as well and follows up what we call peak performance assessment. I think this is 15 questions to answer and probably a couple of minutes on each, so another sort of half an hour on that. And then from there is a sort of face-to-face interviews. For me, I was at the University of Bath at the time. I was flown up to Newcastle to do that in person, and that was sort of like a all-day thing with like Q&A panels. A lot of the emphasis is also on, you're also interviewing Procter & Gamble, right? It's a big decision, a big part of your life as well. So we're seeing if you fit Procter & Gamble, you see if you think Procter & Gamble is a fit for you. So there's a couple interviews in that day in person. And then for me, I sort of found out sort of 2 hours after that I was getting the job or not. And that whole process, although that sounds like a lot, for me, I applied and sort of 2 weeks later I'd done the interview. So it sounds like a lot, but it actually isn't that much time, and it normally moves on pretty quickly.
Brilliant. Excellent. Yeah, sounds again pretty straightforward, which is great for students. And Katie, just to finish up with you.
Yeah, ours is a very, very simple process compared to all of that from P&G and Sage. Yeah, ours is just a simple CV and covering letter to submit to our applications inbox, which you'll find on our website. They're sifted by our recruitment team, and then there'll be an initial interview. So that may be, it's likely to be virtual this year, and then there will be some second stage interviews following that, which will be face-to-face. Then you're invited to site to kind of come on to site and just get a bit of a feel for Cranswick, who we are, what we do. We get people kitted up in PPE and get them around the factory. Just again, so they're fully aware of what type of business we are and what it's like to work in the food industry. And that's it for the placement applications. You're offered a role based on those interviews. For the graduates, following that, we have an assessment centre, so that's hosted off-site. It's a brilliant day where we invite all of our senior team to come through and assess the candidates. And it's kind of standard assessment day things, different activities, Q&A panel, lunch, things like that. But it's a brilliant day. And then the successful graduates will join the business in the following September from that assessment day.
Brilliant, excellent. So for graduates, they really do look for an application process as straightforward as possible. Go straight to Cranswick, because it doesn't get easier than that. All right, so I think we're coming to the end of the session now. So thank you so much to all of our students for your brilliant questions, and thank you for our panelists as well for taking the time. I think we'll stop the recording now. Is that all right, Ange? Yeah.